Hi everyone, before you dive into the episode, I just wanted to interrupt really quickly. You're gonna dive into this episode and you're gonna hear me call this podcast the Holistic Hustle Podcast. And that is because it used to be the old name of this podcast. And it was an amazing ride. I'm so grateful for the Holistic Hustle Podcast and what it served. But recently I've decided to rebrand the podcast based off the evolution of my own journey, my own story, and where God is calling me to go next. And so now the rebrand, which you may know already, is called Wisdom is Wealth. Didn't want you to be confused, so dive into this episode. They were an amazing episode, amazing guests, amazing insights, and enjoy.
You know, now that manifestation is this mainstream thing and like you see so many TikToks on it and everything, which I think is great because more people are open to it. But a lot of people are like, well, what do I need to do? Like the 55 by 5 method where I write everything out for 5 days, 55 times, or do I do this or do I do that? And you're missing the whole point. Like, it's really not about doing. It's about being. It's about your state of being.
Hi, I'm Justin Buonamo, and this is Holistic Hustle. Holistic Hustle is doing things for the right reasons, working hard for the right reasons. The healthy balance of what work and progression and accomplishment and success should actually look like. Welcome back to another episode of the Holistic Hustle Podcast. I have my friend Stephanie Keith here today, who is the visionary founder of the Law of Attraction Tribe. I'm already speaking this audience's language. She is the host of the popular Law of Attraction Tribe podcast, creator of the revolutionary Manifest It Now app, and a best-selling author. After over a decade in the corporate world, Stephanie escaped the 9-to-5 grind to design a life of freedom and abundance. She is passionate about empowering women to manifest lives they love, free from the constraints of trading time for money. With her unique science-backed methods and actionable programs, Stephanie simplifies the art of manifestation and helping women transform their passions into profitable businesses. And she does this at such an effective rate. Stephanie and I met recently. I was on her podcast, and it was awesome. We have a lot of the same beliefs, a lot of the same strategies, but also she just has this amazing twist. And also one of the most important things is like she has proof in the pudding. She has done it, and she's helped hundreds, if not thousands of other people manifest the life of their dreams, right? And manifestation is real, if not one of the main things that we should be trying to learn how to leverage. But unfortunately, there's just a lot of misleading and different information out there. But I truthfully believe Stephanie is one of the best experts, if not the best experts, be the best expert in the industry around this topic.
Wow, what an introduction. I love it. Thank you so much for having me. We had a great time on my podcast, and I'm happy to be here. I hope I can help everyone with that topic that's just become really mainstream, and there's so much out there. So hopefully we can sort through it all.
1,000%. I can kind of relate to that, financial freedom. Like we teach that, but it's become so mainstream and just such a buzzword, and it's so diluted. And I feel like manifestation is just right up there, but that doesn't make it unimportant. That shouldn't be a license for us to ignore it, let alone not leverage it to the best of our ability. And so I would just be curious, what happened in your life that led you to answering the calling to help other people manifest the life they actually want to live?
Yeah, so I got my start with the Law of Attraction in 2009. And it worked instantly for me. Like I just, for whatever reason, it clicked and my life completely turned around in 3 months. Like I went from being in a 100-year-old house with mold and just a bad situation to manifesting my dream home, getting a promotion, doubling my salary, moving my mom close by. Like my whole life had changed in 3 months. And as I started telling other people about this, I was seeing that other people were not getting the same results. And so it just led me on this path where I was super curious, like, why is this working for me? And other people are struggling. And I just wanted to learn everything I could. And so for years, I just went down a rabbit hole learning about the subconscious mind and neuroscience and money and putting myself in situations around wealthy people and trying to crack the code, and figure out like what's going on and why isn't this so easy for everybody? So that was like pretty much just a hobby. And I was still in the corporate, 9-to-5 sales world, very stressful environment. And it really all came to a point on my 30th birthday where I just, kind of looked back at my 20s and realized I had pretty much wasted that time. Like I was so involved in my career. And then on top of that, being a mom, and I had completely lost myself. And I felt like, who am I? Like what happened? What's my purpose? And all these questions started coming up. Like, if I were to die tomorrow, like what would people even say about me? Did I even do anything positive in this world? And like it led
Mm.
me down this whole, night of thinking about that. Like, what is my purpose? How can I leave my mark on the world? What kind of legacy am I leaving, for my kids? And I just kind of had this, like, I guess you can call it like an aha moment or an awakening or whatever, where I just made the decision that night. I'm like, I am done. Like, I am finding a way out. I'm not going to do another 10 years of this, let alone another 30 years. And it's so weird. It's like this thought, this voice, whatever you want to call it, was like, I am going to write a book. And that is how I'm going to leave my mark on the world. And at the time, and I still to this day, I just read it the other day, I was super into The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles.
Mhm.
That was written in the early 1900s. And here, like all these years later, long after he's gone, it was changing my life. And so I'm like, if I write a book, that's going to outlive me. And this could be helping people like for generations. So I'm going to write a book and I'm going to start teaching people about all of these things that I learned with the law of attraction. So I just kind of like had put that out there. And my job, I had the hardest time walking away from it. It's like I was making six figures, great benefits, company car. Everyone around me was like, "Oh my God, this is a dream." Like, and so it was really hard to walk away from that. And it got to the point where I got this new boss and she just made my life miserable. She's like out to get me kind of thing. And I started having panic attacks. Like I literally was going to the hospital thinking I was having a heart attack and it was a panic attack.
Oh,
And looking back now, I'm so grateful for that because I feel like when you're given signs and you ignore them, they're just going to get louder.
yeah,
And so I almost feel like it was the universe like putting her in my path to make me so uncomfortable that it would be more uncomfortable staying than leaving and following this new path. So I like literally just out loud had a conversation with the universe. It was like the first time I'd actually like done that, like started talking out loud, but I was like, I am having panic attacks. I need a way out. I can't leave on my own. Like I need a crystal clear sign that I'm going to leave and I'm going to start this business because at that point I had started my Instagram page, was getting a ton of traction. I knew there was a need for it. I was connecting with people all over the world that wanted to learn more about the law of attraction. I just didn't know what was next. So
yeah.
I asked for a sign. Almost immediately after that, I find out I'm pregnant. Now, what's weird is I had 10 years of infertility. Like I had my first child, and
Wow.
then for 10 years, like saw specialists, like no one could figure out what was wrong, and I get pregnant. And the moment, Justin, like the moment I looked at that pregnancy test, I knew, like without a doubt, I knew this is my out. I'm going to go on maternity leave and I'm going to build up my business and never go back. And it
Yeah.
wasn't even like, I hope I can do that. It was just like, it's happening. Like, there is
Yeah.
no other option because I am not coming back into this environment. So, maternity leave is getting closer and closer and closer. And I'm still not making money in my business because I didn't know what I was doing. Like I was good on social media, didn't know how to build a business around it. And I was good at manifesting money, but I had my blinders on. I always manifested it through my job and couldn't really figure out
Mm.
outside of that, like how am I going to manifest money? So again, I'm like having a conversation with the universe, like, hey, send me a sign. I need a sign. What do I do next? I have to replace my income. So I'm in the hospital, just had my daughter, like still in the hospital. And I open up my email to just see if anything, had come through. And there's an email from a woman I met on Instagram that we were kind of acquaintances. And she was like, hey, I have my startup. We're building an app. I need someone to run social media. I thought of you. Like, I will pay you to come and duplicate that for my business. And I was like, can I work like with my baby in tow, my own hours? She was like, I don't care what you do, just duplicate it for me. I was like, oh my God. And I was just like laughing at this point because I'm like, you ask for a sign from the universe and you will get an answer. And every time I would feel like a crazy person, like, oh my gosh, I'm talking to myself, but I'm telling you, it is so crazy what will happen. So I go to work for her. I instantly I replace my income with this job where I'm make my own schedule and whatever. And through that job, I learned how to run a business, how to do marketing, how to actually make money. And they were building an app, and the team that was building it was just dragging their feet, you know? And I'm the type of person, my mom always says, like, you can never just sit idly by and like wait for things. You always have to make something happen. And I was getting really impatient, and I'm just like, forget it. Like, I'm just going to teach myself how to do this because it needs to get done. So I figured out how to create the app. And when I did that, one of the girls I worked with, she was like, Stephanie, this is amazing. If you could do this for them, you could do this for yourself. Like, this is what you need to do for Law of Attraction Tribe, create an app.
Yep.
So I created the Manifest It Now app. And that was like my, aside from the podcast, because I started that at the same time, that was like my introduction to the world of like, okay, here's how I'm going to help people. I have everything I've learned, I've like put inside this app, right? So that was my goal. And like my tagline became, and still to this day is, manifest a life you don't need a vacation from. Because I know there's other people out there that are like me, dreading getting up in the morning, going to a 9 to 5 job, or they don't feel like they're living in their purpose and feel unfulfilled. And I definitely like manifested that. Like every single day in the morning while I was in my 9 to 5 job, I would write in my journal, I have multiple sources of passive income. I'm my own boss. I make my own money. I make my own schedule. And all of those things started coming true, like one after the other, very quickly after that. And I think it's because I just opened myself to believing like I can ask for help from the universe. I'm getting signs. I can let go of how it's going to happen and just trust. And like looking back, if someone were to tell me, okay, you're going to develop an app and you're going to be a podcaster, I would have laughed. I'd be like, no, like I'm not techie. I hate the sound of my voice. Like, no way. But it's just like you follow these little nudges and the
Yep.
path reveals itself, you know?
Yeah. So
Um, yeah, I have one more little story. I'll try to make it quick.
go ahead. We got plenty of time. I don't got anybody
But
after
yeah,
you.
it just goes along with like asking the universe kind of thing. But that night on my 30th birthday, where it came through and it's like, you're going to write a book. I had kind of pursued that. Like around the time my app came out, I kind of started pursuing that. And I talked to some authors that I had met through the podcast, and I let them get in my head. They were supposed to encourage me, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, this is the worst process ever. And you're not going to get a book deal. Like only celebrities get a book deal. First, you have to get an agent, and it's this whole process." And I was like, forget it. Like, this just sounds horrible and stressful. So I let them get in my head, and I just kind of like tossed that to the side. And I ended up doing a vision board party where I was pulling up like old vision boards to show everybody. And I pulled up my vision board from 2018, and the whole thing was about like writing a book, like, being on a bestseller list, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, you know what? I know I have a book in me, and I know that all of these authors said one thing, but I'm just going to go for it again. And I declared it. I'm like, I only want to do this if it's an easy, fun process. So I put it on my vision board during that party. Like I showed everyone, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to write a book. And I put it on in December of 2020. January of 2021, 1 month later, I get contacted by a book publisher that wanted me to write a book on manifestation. And it was a book deal that supposedly only celebrities get, that came through. And that book became a bestseller and turned into like 4 other books. So the reason I wanted to throw that in is because, when we're thinking about like manifesting money, for so long, I was manifesting it through my day job because that was what I was intending. Like, I want this raise, I want this promotion. And I was only given the universe like one specific place to go with it. But then when I just kind of left it open, like you tell me, like you give me the sign,
Mm.
talking to the universe where I should go next. I want to have freedom. I want to have abundance. I want to be able to raise my kids, but also I don't want to give up my income. The path will reveal itself.
Yeah.
And so it's like not only did it reveal itself in the form of an app and getting money that way, but then in the form of a book deal and
Yeah.
then a podcast and then courses. So it's like if you just open yourself up and let the universe figure out how it's going to come, it's like there's an infinite number of ways it can happen, and it's so much more fun and easy just
Yeah.
letting go of like the control.
Yeah, it's so good. There's so much goodness in what you said, but one thing that stands out is like you just display a very healthy balance of the dance between surrender and self-reliance, right? Surrender is just like I'm gonna let God figure out the how, right? But the self-reliance is also too, it's like, you know, you have to take action, right?
Yeah.
Like you are not going to meditate $1 million on your front doorstep, right? It's like Joe Dispenza talks about this, where he's like, it's one thing to meditate and visualize a life that you want, but you have to actually go out and act on that visualization that you had. And a lot of times, the crazy part is just putting one foot in front of the other. I always say, take one step and the next step will reveal itself, right? Like there's
Yep.
this great book called The Five Temptations of a CEO. And anybody listening, if it sounds interesting, it's awesome. Short book taught through an amazing fable. And it talks about one of the temptations of a CEO that is a bad CEO, if you will, is they try to operate off of certainty instead of clarity. I've got to be certain that I know this is all going to work out, that there's no risk involved, that no one's going to judge me, that the whole plan is in place, and that there's every possibility that I'm going to succeed, right? Like, as you can imagine, if you wait around for certainty, you're going to wait around for forever, right?
Exactly.
Instead, you have to operate off of clarity. It's just clear. This is the next step that I need to take, right? And when I do, the next one will reveal itself. But you're never going to see the second step until you take the first one, right? And so I love that about what you're saying. And also Stephanie is talking a lot about, yes, like putting things out into the universe, saying things, right? Believing in things and leaving it up to a higher power to make the rest happen. But at the same time, what she was saying, but didn't say this, was that she actually does the work too as well, the healthy balance of surrender and self-reliance. And I think one of the pieces of the work is, the journaling that you're talking about, the asking out loud, the saying of things, which is huge because, the human mind doesn't know the difference between reality and thought or reality and affirmations. Right. And so I love this study. I forgot what big institution did it. I want to say maybe Harvard, right? But they did this study and they had two groups of people, right? 30 in one group, 30 in the other group, right? And they sent them out for 30 days. And the one group practiced free throws for basketball every single day, like actually physically practice them, right? The other group, they didn't practice them. They just had to sit there and visualize them making free throws, right? And so before they sent them out, they obviously tested them. They wanted to test their free throw shooting percentage. How many did they make, right, out of X amount of shots? And so then they sent them out, and one group practiced, the other one imagined, didn't practice, didn't touch a basketball. They came back and they measured the improvements, and the group that actually practiced and shot a basketball improved by 30%. The group that visualized it, didn't touch a basketball, improved by 29%, only 1% less, right? Because the human mind doesn't know the difference between reality and thought, right? And that works in both ways, positive and negative thought. And so I absolutely love that. I think it's a big piece of manifestation, but I'd be curious, Stephanie, what is a popular piece of advice around manifestation that you don't agree with?
Yeah, well, it kind of ties into what you're talking about because, now that manifestation is this mainstream thing and like you see so many TikToks on it and everything, which I think is great because more people are open to it. But a lot of people are like, well, what do I need to do? Like the 55 by 5 method where I write everything out for 5 days, 55 times, or do I do this or do I do that? And you're missing the whole point. Like it's really not about doing,
Mm.
it's about being, it's about your state of being. And just to tie into what you were just saying, we're very conditioned as a society to really like live in the left hemisphere of the brain, like analytical, strategic, where you have to have a plan, you have to know the next step, right? The right side of the brain is where you have creativity, imagination. This is where you manifest. Like manifesting is creating, it's co-creating with the universe, it's creating a reality. And I think it's like we have to switch gears a little bit because we're so taught to have a plan, know every step of the way. And, that's what you do. Where manifesting, it's just like you've got to let go of that and get into the state of being where you're in alignment with the life you want to have, And um, the best way to do that, or one of the best ways, is through using your imagination and visualizing, like visualize the life that you want. And you don't have to know every step of the way. Like you want to visualize, you want to live in the outcome and then let each step reveal itself, like you said earlier, one step at a time. And, just think about any successful person that you admire. I guarantee they have a big vision picture and they let other people figure out the in between steps. They're very good at, of course, they're not going to call it manifesting, but that's what it is. They're holding a vision and then letting like the little individual steps come along as they need to, or have other people figure that out, but they're holding the vision. When you hold the vision, what starts to happen in your mind, because your mind doesn't know the difference, like you said, between reality and fantasy, is it starts to think this is your actual life. So like every morning, like I said, when I'm writing out and I'm sitting in this feeling of, I'm my own boss, I make my own schedule, I have multiple streams of income, I was like training my subconscious mind.
Yep.
So it starts to think, okay, well, she already has that. So there's no reason to push back. There's no reason to resist it. There's no reason to doubt it or fear it because you already have it. And so you kind of have to live in this place of like having it now, And one great way to do this, like if you're really stuck in your head and you're thinking, what do I have to do? A great way to like shift into that state of being is go somewhere that represents the life that you want to live. So my husband and I do this at least once a year. We try to do it more often, but it's completely life-changing. So we will go like not far. We'll go to the beach like 30 minutes away and we will stay at the best, most expensive, 5-star hotel. We'll rent like the presidential suite or whatever, even if it's just for a night, or even if you don't stay there, just go and put yourself in an environment that represents like the next level version. And we'll just sit in that and like be among wealthy people and like soak it all in and act as if like crazy people, like you're a kid pretending, just act as if. And we'll talk about our goals, but we'll talk about it in the sense that it's already manifested. Like, oh, I'm so glad, the house is paid off. I'm so glad, XYZ happened. And being in that environment, it does something. It helps you like instantly without having to think about it or work at it. You're instantly aligning energetically with what you want. Your mindset is like getting on the same wavelength as all these wealthy people that are surrounding you.
I love that.
So it's a fun way, but it's an easy way to kind of shift from that state of doing to that state of being. And if you could bring someone like a spouse or a friend, it's like so much more powerful. It's like bring the person you're sharing your life with, come
Yeah.
up with goals together, collectively use your energy to come up with a game plan and then like an up level. And every time we do this, even if it's for one day, something crazy will happen. We will get like the most miraculous opportunity that we never could have planned or predicted. And it will just land in our lap. Like we'll get an email or a phone call that'll be completely life-changing. And we've done it over and over and over again. And every time the same results. So
Mm. Mm.
forget about the 55x5 method. Just go to like the swanky part of town and hang out and
Mhm.
just start recalibrating to that energy. And I promise you things will start manifesting.
Such good advice. And my wife's going to love this part of the episode, if not the whole episode. And also, I can just attest to that. Like it's definitely something that we've done before in many different ways. But one example that sticks out to me is last summer we were in South Florida. And South Florida, from Miami all the way up to like Jupiter, Florida, like you just drive the coast for hours, just like the most beautiful homes ever. And so we drove from Pompano Beach all the way up to Delray Beach. And these houses were just absolutely ridiculous. And it was just, we wanted to drive to manifest and experience, right? And dream. And as I'm driving, right, I'm thinking, I'm like, what separates these owners of this home from me? Right. And the first thing that came to mind was age. Okay. I can't really do too much about the age. They're probably double my age, which gives them double the opportunity. But what can I control? And then it landed on me. It was like their utilization and leveraging of their resources, right? Their human resources, right? Their intellectual resources. But what really landed on me was their financial resources, right? And at the time, we had a lending partner for my company that would help finance our clients to then get them in the door for us. And they were obviously collecting money on the interest rate, but a big thing that they were doing, they were scraping about 18% off the top of what they were funding our clients for, right? And then also a lot of our clients that we really trusted weren't getting approved for these lending solutions because they missed a car payment like 5 years ago. And I'm literally looking at their budget, their bank account, and their balance sheet, and I'm like, they can easily afford this payment, let alone I trust them. And so it dropped in on me. I created my own lending company. Right. And within 30 days, had my own lending company registered with the SEC and then injected $350,000 of cash into my current business, JFF. And also, right, within 30 to 60 days, I now had another $1 million business because we had about $600,000 to $700,000 of clients financed. So accounts receivable on the books. And I had an accounts manager who handles everything. And then also we've got a pipeline of leads coming from my one business serving the financing company. And so within 60 days, I grew my net worth by $1.5 million, all from putting myself into an environment, a situation like you're talking about, right? And it's just
Yeah.
so powerful and it's so true. And I'm so happy that that was the piece of advice that you gave.
Yeah, just recently over the summer, every year we go to Naples. We just love that area. There's so many
Yeah.
billionaires there, you know. And so my teenage daughter was with, and I took her for a drive. I'm like, I want to show you, you know, how these billionaires live. And we went and we're looking at these homes that are just insane, right on
Yeah.
the beach. I mean, they take up a whole block, and she's, you know, blown away. And afterwards, we're walking along Fifth Avenue and she sees the realtor office and she's like, "What's that?" I was like, "Well, those are the people that sell those crazy big homes that we just looked at." And she was like, "Oh, well, how much do they make?" And I'm like, "Well, let's calculate it." And we went on Zillow and we were looking up these homes and calculating like what a realtor would make. And she was like, "That's what I want to do." And it was just like the wheels were turning.
Mhm.
So she's 15 years old, doesn't know anything about real estate or, you know, any of that stuff. But just being in that environment, she's like already finding opportunities that are right in front of her. Like that's how powerful this is. It's right in front of us all the time. We all have an infinite number of opportunities just sitting right in front of us.
Yep.
It's just like, are you consciously becoming aware of those?
Yep.
And so put yourself in that environment and you will become aware of a lot of things that were there all along. You just didn't know it.
I love that. I think it's great advice, and it kind of bleeds, or not bleeds a little bit into my next question, but it probably could be an answer for my next question. But I'm curious if you got another answer. So if someone's listening right now and it's just like, man, I really wish I could manifest more money. Aside from that, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. So, well, let's go back to that for a second because I hear this all the time. I want to manifest more money. And I'm like, what does that even mean? You
Yeah.
know, like you want to manifest an extra dollar, an extra $1 million, you know? And I like to point that out because everyone thinks that they have a good idea of what they want. But when you start digging and asking questions, it's like it's so vague. And then people go back and forth and you get wishy-washy.
Yep.
So I really encourage people to just spend some time truly thinking about what you want. And guess what? It's never the money, ever. The money is a means to something else going on. And usually it's some state of either freedom or security, feeling safe. Like there's something else attached to that. So really explore that. And I think the best way to explore that and the best way to really set a goal around money, so you can manifest it, is start thinking about the lifestyle you want to live. Because like I said in the beginning, I was manifesting money like crazy, and I was more stressed out than I'd ever been in my life because I was just so focused on this dollar amount that I could see happening in the job that I had. And when I started shifting that to the lifestyle I wanted to live, the overall feeling I wanted to feel every day, like what I wanted to experience in my day to day, that's when things shifted and I started manifesting money in ways that felt really good, really fun, not stressful, and very aligned with the life I want to live. So just kind of explore that a little bit deeper and just know that it's really not the money. The money, you're chasing the money, but you're really chasing something else. And when you can kind of figure that out, it'll
Mhm.
change your life
Mhm.
completely
Yeah.
because you can start then curating the vision for your dream life, the lifestyle you want to wake up to every day. And
Yeah.
that's what matters more than an amount of money that's sitting in the bank or being invested.
For sure. At JFF, we always say it is not just about the money. Money is the tool, freedom's the goal. That's our company slogan. And I tell
I
our
love
clients all
that.
the time, like, I could care less about the money in your bank account itself. I care about the opportunities that it provides for you and your family. And
Yes.
so I just like, what's the why behind the money? And then also what I'm kind of hearing too as well is like being intentional with the number, which is correlated to the why. But a lot of times vagueness confuses the universe. It
Mhm.
confuses God, right?
Yep.
It's like it's not giving a clear answer of what you want. And so you're like, I want more money. I thought that's where you were going to go when you're saying we got to get specific because like you want more money, we got to be specific on how much you want and why you want that. And so it's one thing to say I want more money. It's another thing to say like I want $150,000 in my bank account, right? Or
Right.
even like you were saying before, I have $150,000 in my bank account, right?
Yeah. Well, and something I used to always do is I would think for some reason it was always $2 million. I want $2 million, but I had no idea why I wanted $2 million. Like I just heard that at some point in time and it sounded good. And what happened was when I started curating, like, what does my dream lifestyle look like? And then I figured out, okay, how much money do I need to pay for that? It was like $10,000 a month. Like that's very different from millions of dollars. And I'm like, I don't have to wait until I'm a multimillionaire. I could start living this lifestyle with $10,000 a month, you know? And so it really can shift perspective. And I have no problem with setting money goals, but like you said, get specific. Like I always like to think of, you're ordering from the universe the same as you would order from Amazon. You're not going to go to Amazon and type in like I
Ah,
want a book, like you're going to find the specific exact book you want and order it. And so it should be the same thing with goals in your life, whether it's money or a relationship. Like don't be vague because then you're just leaving it up to anything crazy happening. You want to like really get intentional.
it's so good. I'm writing that down. Hold on. I think that's so good. And I just think it's a you get what you focus on,
Yeah.
right? And so if you're detailed with what you want and you focus on those details, it significantly increases the chances of that becoming your reality. And so yeah, go ahead.
I
Sorry to keep
agree with that. And it just reminded me of something that's really important that I see this happening a lot, especially on social media, where people will be like, all right, I'm going to manifest something. And then they'll write it down once or they'll say an affirmation like once in the morning. And then they'll spend the rest of the day like complaining about their circumstances or surrounding themselves with toxic people. And it's like, that's not going to work because the majority of your focus is on all these other things that you don't want. And so you really need to be mindful of that and start. And that's another reason why putting yourself in an environment with people that are at the next level will help you up level. It's going to help you focus on your goal versus putting yourself in an environment where everyone's negative and complaining about money and always in debt. And it's not that you have to write people off or anything like that, but you can just start adding in things that support your goals.
Yeah.
And it'll sort of like the people that are toxic or the situations, those will naturally start to fall away if you can just keep focusing more and more and more on what you want versus what you don't want. It's not just a going to write one affirmation down and I'm good to go. Why didn't it manifest? I don't get it. It's like it's a lifestyle of focusing on the vision, holding the vision.
Yeah. It's a conscious effort to reset our subconscious set point, right? And a conscious effort is a decent amount of work, right?
Yep.
Like, and in many different ways, like not only for yourself, but also just like the boundaries you may need to put up, right? With the other people that are in your life. And, it's so true, even though it's cliche, you end up becoming the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Ed Mylett talks about this a lot. And he's like, if you're like an insanely ripped and jacked fitness guy, right? And you start hanging out with 5 guys who are 100 pounds overweight and eating McDonald's every day, eventually you will become overweight. You really will. You surround yourself with them, no matter how disciplined and successful you are. And so it's just so true. But the beautiful thing is it works the other way, right? So once I started putting myself into rooms where people were making tremendous amounts of money while having an amazing impact on the clients they were serving, I started doing the same thing. I had this old mentor of a company called Clients and Community, and one of the best coaching companies in the world, if not the best coaching company. And I have one of the founders on my podcast next week, and they do like $1.5 million a month. It's crazy, right? And when I first started going to their conferences, I was doing well at the time, but I definitely wasn't making $100K a month. And one of their founders, Landon, said, you're going to laugh one day when you realize how easy it is to make $100K a month. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, that's crazy. What are you talking about? But I kept going back and kept hanging out with these people that made $100K a month. And guess what happened shortly after? I started making $100K a month and haven't really looked back since. And so everything that Stephanie is just saying is so extremely valuable. And so as you can see, when you surround yourself with people like Stephanie, right, you get information like this, you get downloads, you get inspiration, and you get some next steps, right? So before we end here, Stephanie, I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of interest of, coming into your world and learning more about you and from you. So where can people find you and connect?
Yeah, so I have a podcast. It's called Law of Attraction Tribe. I'm on social media at Law of Attraction Tribe. I answer all of my Instagram messages. So if you have a question on manifesting, that would be the place to message me. You could download the Manifest It Now app. So that's where you'll find my entire subliminal library, all of the different tools that I've used throughout the years to manifest. You'll find that, including a whole section on manifesting money. And then you could find my books anywhere, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. So the big main book, the bestseller, is called Trust the Universe. But if you just search my name, Stephanie Keith, you'll see like all the different books that are out there. And if you go to my website, which is the lawofattractiontribe.com, I have a money manifestation bundle. It's 11 courses and it's $11. Like, it is a no-brainer, but that will really break down the manifesting part of building wealth and manifesting money. So if you're curious on that, there's a link right on the homepage.
It was a phenomenal deal. You should probably buy that like yesterday. It's a no-brainer. If you're listening to this, yeah, absolute no-brainer. And Stephanie, I just appreciate you coming on here. Like, this is going to serve the audience like no other, because what you're talking about here is so real, right? And it's, if you just, go and research any of the most successful people ever, right? Even going back hundreds of years, this topic is very prevalent in what they give credit to in regards to what built their success, not just their success, their dream life. Right. And so I just really, really appreciate you being on this show. Thank you so much for stopping by today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. And I hope that it helps people with the whole process of manifesting. Sometimes it's hard to switch gears, but hopefully it'll help some people. And I appreciate you inviting me on your podcast.
I'm sure it will help a lot of people. So thank you, everybody, for coming back to another episode of the Holistic Hustle podcast. Today's episode was phenomenal. So please download, subscribe, and please, please, please share this with other people. If you know somebody that would benefit from this message, please share this with them, because I promise you they're going to thank you after listening to it, probably like you're thanking yourself for showing up here today. So we thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Holistic Hustle podcast.